everybody, and welcome to a special Grand Prix review. We're doing this on Monday instead for many different reasons. The first reason is that yesterday everything sort of exploded on us and we ran out of time. The second reason is because today is the contract recognitions board for the Oscar Piastri trial, and they're due out of court any minute now, actually. So if we hear anything breaking today, we'll tell you. And third of all, as well, is because we need to have a massive discussion, an emergency crisis meeting about Ferrari as well, after they really sort of not only threw it away yesterday, they sort of self-destructed right in front of our eyes. And joining me to talk about that is pit lane reporter Josh Plays, and I'm glad to say that our co-commentator from yesterday as well, Tom Dillon, is still making an appearance here. Good morning to you both, and well, actually good evening to you both, I should say. We'll start with you, Tom, as well. Just a Belgian Grand Prix that was very exciting the first 2 minutes, and then it sort of exploded and was very dull, but apart from Ferrari.
There's racing throughout the field, and I think that's always what you want to have. I thought it actually is a rather entertaining race. I quite like the races that sort of bubble up and you get these interesting battles throughout the field. And I think that's the thing. There wasn't really a battle for the lead so much as Max Verstappen sort of disappeared into the distance, as we all saw. 17 seconds the winning margin in the end, I believe. So really not under any pressure. It was 17.8 seconds to Sergio Perez. What's interesting to see as well, Red Bull getting the 1-2 is something that I've just thought about, because they hadn't had a 1-2 for a couple of years, had they, before this season, and now this is either their second or third in the year, which is really putting them into a good spot for the Constructors' Championship as well, especially considering, as I'm sure we'll get into later, Josh, Ferrari absolutely not wanting to win a race here.
Absolutely, we'll get into that later on, and Josh as well. Exciting stuff. Lewis Hamilton going over the top of Fernando Alonso as well, and then Nicholas Latifi spinning and taking out Valtteri Bottas. It all happened in the opening 2 laps, and that's what many people have been talking about, actually, those opening 2 laps. And let's just talk a little bit about your opinion on Lewis Hamilton as well. Were Fernando's comments wise and sort of correct when Fernando says, typical guy who only knows how to race and lead from the front? He doesn't know how to overtake. And I think that's a fair criticism, actually, of Lewis Hamilton in the past couple of years. What's your take on it?
Yeah, some of it's fair, some of it's a bit unfair. If we go back to last year in Brazil, when it was a back to front and that incredible win. But when that radio message came over, I think we were all laughing in the commentary box. Alonso being Alonso once again, and Hamilton being Hamilton once again.
Absolutely, and we'll go through the results then and talk about the drivers that have impressed us as much. I'll put the glasses on so I can read the names on the tiny monitor. Max Verstappen, though, I think everybody would agree deserves some massive respects as well. Started 14th on the grid, took the lead by lap 12, pitted on lap 15, regained the lead and the net lead by lap 18, and never looked back. A solid victory from him as well. And my question to both of you, we'll start with Tom and then go to Josh as well. Verstappen in a second world championship, has he sort of validated all the critics he had last year about saying that he was gifted the title by Michael Masi?
98 points is the gap now to Charles Leclerc behind. It's a little bit less to Sergio Perez, but I don't think that's really a concern for him. I don't think Red Bull are going to let Perez even win a race if Verstappen's in second. So barring any major reliability issues, Verstappen is pretty safe with his 9 wins so far this season. And yes, I think absolutely validating the claims. He's shown once he's got the hardware. Last year, Mercedes probably had the better car towards the end of the year. Let's not make a mistake that Brazil, where Lewis Hamilton drove through the field so well, a lot of that had something to do with Mercedes finding a lot of top speed after the summer break, and he was up against it. And in the end, of course, Abu Dhabi happened, and a lot of people weren't happy with that result. But this year, he's shown once he's got the best car on the grid. And it wasn't the best car initially, but now it is, and it seems that this technical directive has helped him as well, Max Verstappen. I think that really he's validated those claims that he is going to be if this continues as well, this dominance, probably in the question with the likes of Sebastian Vettel.
Josh, your take?
Yeah, I think all of the Team L8's fans were the people hating on Michael Massey in Abu Dhabi last year, but people like us who follow the race sport really, really closely and understand how difficult running a race as a race director, and especially with millions of people shouting at you, telling you what to do, was really, really hard. And Max Verstappen 284 points, Sergio Perez 191. That's just an incredible gap. I think it is Max Verstappen's title, and if Team L8 have something to say, which they will do, about Max Verstappen's second title, I just don't know what to do. Just whatever happens, if Max Verstappen wins the next title, controversially, just stay well away. Just stay 100 miles from F1 Twitter. Just jump on a rocket and go to space.
Well, talking
To
about
avoid.
Yeah, exactly. And if it actually ever launches as well, because it got cancelled today, the Artemis 1 launch, as we were talking about before we came on air. Sergio Perez finished in second position as well, started second, was second as well. Red Bull used him tactically to defend against the two Ferraris, but they didn't need to in the end as well. Carlos Sainz finishing in third position, and we'll begin one part of the Ferrari rant right now as well, and we'll talk about the Sainz Ferrari rant here, because throughout the race as well, he started from pole position, he had a comfortable lead, and then Ferrari strategy department once again playing their factors. But the most concerning thing is that his engineer seemed to be a racing driver. And I know both of you were talking about it yesterday in the commentary box. And once again, we'll start with Tom and then go to Josh because you were listening on the radio. Just both of you feel free to chime in whenever you like, really. Avoiding bumps at Eau Rouge, the Camel Straight, Le Combs and Blanchimont. He was on the radio every 5 seconds, to which the point Carlos Sainz just said, just let me drive as well. It's getting quite bad at Ferrari for Sainz as well, where he's not even allowed to drive himself anymore.
And I think I said on the broadcast yesterday as well, the fact that this was happening in Paul Ricard, and he was trying to battle Sergio Perez, and he's told to come into the pits, and he's just saying, no, let me drive the car. He is from a racing family, as I said yesterday. He's an incredible driver, and he's now a Formula One race winner. Unless there was a serious concern reliability-wise, then there's no need for him to be told to stay off certain bumps. He should be able to sort that out himself. Though, of course, if there was a reliability concern, I don't know why they would just say try and avoid the aggressive bumps, because we can, and then explain to him that we can see something going on in the car. It's mind-boggling to me, and I think really it gets to the point where that kind of thing shouldn't be allowed over the team radio, basically telling the driver how to drive. I thought we tried to get rid of this a few years ago, and that rule change didn't quite work. But here's the other extreme of the spectrum.
Lasted about 2 seconds, didn't it? And Josh, you were hearing all the team radios in your ear and seeing all the notifications as well, coming through social media as well, and the race control area. What Ferrari fans must be not only biting their own nails off, they must be chomping at the bit to get rid of this entire Ferrari team. I mean, they just don't look practical anymore as a racing team. They look like they're in Formula 2 rather than in Formula 1. It's just not acceptable, is it?
Yeah, they look like they're in not Formula 2, not Formula 3, but Formula 1000.
Wow, that's going back
the
a bit.
way that they're acting, and it's just stupid. Carlos Sainz should be able to experiment what best line it is, and if there is massive bumps, don't go over the radio, because then other teams can hear that and then they'll change it. Do it in your pre-race briefing. Don't do it over the radio, because it's times like it could be side by side. Don't go there. Don't go there. I can't go there because there's a car there. Do you want me to drive into them and cause a massive accident, or what? Just shut up and let me do what I want.
And we'll get back into Ferrari in a second. George Russell finished in 4th position as well. A decent result. Once again, every single race he's finished this year, he's been inside the top 5 as well. Really is Mr. Consistent. Of course, only retired at Silverstone due to the crash and the marshals putting the car on the back of the truck when he told them not to. So Russell, again, being Mr. Consistent. Now, on the timing sheets we've got here, it's saying that Leclerc is in 5th, but that's not correct. It was Leclerc 5th on the road, but Alonso actually finished in 5th position. A great race from Fernando, despite the early morning crash as well, in terms of Hamilton jumping over the front of the wheel on the first lap. No damage for Fernando as well, bar a little bit of an aero plate that was flapping around in the race. Lewis Hamilton came off worse on that. Again, we'll talk to that when we get down to Hamilton, who finished last. But we must talk about Charles Leclerc, and the bigger Ferrari rant now starts as well. Charles Leclerc started this race 15th, worked his way up to 5th. Not as impressive as what Verstappen did, no, but Leclerc, who was sort of hampered because in qualifying, they put a race set of soft tyres on. They didn't have a brand new set of softs for the mid part of the race. He started on soft compound tyres, switched over to mediums, then switched over to hard tyres. And as well, then put back on a set of soft tyres that were scrubbed from the previous day and a failed attempt of a fastest lap. And 2 laps before the end, Ferrari come on the radio and say to Charles Leclerc, we are considering a pit lane box for fastest lap. Charles Leclerc said, no, I don't want to go for it. I don't think that's the right decision, but in the end, it's your call. Ferrari then wait about 5 seconds before the engineer comes on and says, okay, we box now. And with that, he came into the pit lane, changed over to soft compound tyres, lost track position to Fernando Alonso, and then on the last lap had to battle Fernando Alonso to get back past the 5th position, ergo losing out an opportunity to go to the fastest lap. And then just as we were going to hear from the top 3, it was announced he'd received a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane and 1 kilometre over the speed limit as well. Ferrari threw away 2 World Championship points for nothing. Reaction, Tom, because I know you've been building this and you've been writing this down.
Excited for this. I lost sleep last night ready for this rant. But no, I also was hearing on Twitter this morning that it was a sensor issue that made his pit speed limit a kilometre over the limit, caused by Verstappen's visor tear off that got caught in the brake duct. That's what I heard on Twitter. I can't back up that claim, but that's just what I've heard. But no, I said on the broadcast yesterday that I think there's something wrong at Ferrari that goes more than just the strategy team or who they've got in charge. As Ferrari have got this sort of arrogance in that they know they are Ferrari, and they've got special veto powers. With the FIA, a lot of people think that F1 without Ferrari is going to be dead, and that you might as well pack it up and go home. So I think Ferrari has to change at the top, in that they've got to try and shake this sort of arrogance in that we're Ferrari. I mean, they're practically the national team of Italy. If you see the scenes when they win at Monza, and they need to shake that sort of arrogance, and they need to go and say, well, actually, we have to be a little bit like the other teams in that nothing is given to us. We've got to go and make those right calls, and it starts with your strategy, of course. Your strategy needs to be on points. It's not difficult here. It's very difficult to get a Formula 1 strategy wrong. It's only when you start tinkering with things that you start to make mistakes. Ferrari should just say, okay, let's relax. Let's just do the basic strategy and let's stick to our plan, and let's stop trying to preempt what other people are going to do, because as we've seen for many years, they haven't won a world championship since 2007, remember? And they've thrown away many a world championship since then. But they just need to think, right, let's buck up and let's just keep it simple, and eventually the results will show, because they've got the car to fight. So I apologise about the phone as well. I didn't realise.
Oh, we didn't hear it.
Oh, I could have just played it off then.
Could have.
But never mind.
Too honest.
Yes.
Yeah. I was on the Twitter last night and this morning, and what a bombshell it was. Charles Leclerc at 5 to 7 p.m. last night. P9 in lap 1, then tear off in the brakes that causes front right brake overheating. Have to stop to take off the tear off the brakes. come back to P5, took a 5-second penalty for being too quick in pit lane because of a burnt sensor caused by the first issue, and then just ends it with "beautiful day!" exclamation mark.
You just can't write it.
Yeah, you really cannot. And F1 is just, headphone really doesn't like me, and it is the best headphone out of the two, so I really do need the right one. But F1 is normally nicknamed the World Circus, and Ferrari being in F1 just makes that even real.
Even just unbelievable, and I'm very much worried about what they're going to do when we get to Monza as well. And I said it on the Grid Network and actually on the commentary yesterday as well. If Ferrari don't win at Monza when they've got a real good car to do so, I think the Italian fans might drop kick Mattia Binotto off the nearest cliff. Just to get rid of them as well, and the entire strategy department as well. The entire pit wall needs changing, and you touched on it yesterday, Tom, as well. You think that the problem is more deeply rooted in Ferrari rather than with the actual boss of how it's going right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And this goes back to what I was saying with the arrogance, in that it's been 15 years since they last won a championship. I was 1 year old when Ferrari last won a championship. I don't even believe Josh was alive. It's unbelievable. No. And this is supposed to be exactly. This is supposed to be one of the biggest teams in the world, if not the biggest team in the world. They're supposed to be the crown jewel of Formula One, essentially. And they haven't won a championship for 15 years. You look at Sebastian Vettel in 2018 and 2017. They had a very good package there. They could have perhaps gone on to convert the championship. Of course, Mercedes were very competitive, and Lewis Hamilton in the end ended up practically walking those championships. So let's not forget that Sebastian Vettel had the opportunity to at least bring a fight to Lewis, and it didn't happen. They had Alonso and all of that saga. They gave Kimi Raikkonen an undrivable car towards the end of the 2010s. Then when he asked them to fix it, they said, no, we can't fix it when it's their own car. So there's something at Ferrari that just has to change if they're going to want to win world championships again. And we've seen this in Formula One. It's the same thing that's happening at Manchester United, where there's a sort of arrogance where they expect success so much, and in the end they're just getting a little bit complacent, albeit the Manchester United thing is a little bit more funny than Ferrari.
I think it is, yeah. And I was commentating on their match this time last week, and it was their best performance as well. But still, there's deeply rooted problems as well. We will continue to monitor the Ferrari ownership as well, but I just want to leave you with this one last thing about Mattia Binotto, who had an interview with Paul Di Resta yesterday on Sky F1, and he said that he doesn't have any regrets about bringing Charles Leclerc into the pit lane. He still thinks it was the right thing to do, and he still doesn't think that Ferrari are doing anything wrong at all. So the last person who thought like that from Ferrari did get fired. So we'll wait to see if that pales up. But he is still insisting that Ferrari are thinking towards the future and not to the past as well. Still, it's more trophy cabinets in the past than there are in the present. That's after all. Further down then on the order, we'll go with Esteban Ocon then. He finished in 7th position. A strong race from him as, again, starting 16th on the grid, made his way up to 7th. That was a great race for him, battling with the likes of Vettel, Gasly, Albon throughout the race as well. And it was actually a decent performance from that Alpine to get double points. I mean, not happened a lot this year, and Ocon, I think, deserves more credit. The fact that he is going to be the team leader next year alongside whoever is driving at Alpine. And how do you rate Ocon's performance since his Grand Prix win in Hungary last year as well? Has he developed as a driver at all, or has he pretty much just sort of stayed the same? What's your opinions on that? Who wants to go first?
I'll let Josh go first if he wants to.
Yeah, and it's just I just don't know what's going on currently.
With Esteban Ocon, yeah.
Yeah.
He's been up and down all season. Do you remember he had a crash, didn't he, earlier on in the year? I think in Emilia-Romagna, he was involved in that first corner accident as well with Sainz and Tsunoda. And Ocon's just been up and down sort of all season as well, yeah. As I think Josh noticed something on Twitter. So, Tom, what's your opinion on Esteban? I thought you noticed something on Twitter. God.
He's going along quite nicely this season, isn't he? He hasn't quite... In fact, he's beating Fernando Alonso in the standings by 13 points, which is surprising because I could have sworn Fernando has had a few more standout performances in the Alpine this year. But of course, he was a race winner last year, and he's going to have to take the reins. He's a French driver in a French team, still managed by Toto Wolff, which might be a little bit of a detractor for him. But he's in a nice spot right now, Esteban Ocon, finishing in 7th position in a race like that, in a car that perhaps isn't worthy of 7th position in many respects. Of course, his teammate is finishing in 5th, but as long as you keep doing your job, then that's all that they can really ask of him. And right now, he's doing his job very nicely indeed.
And he's the only Alpine driver who is doing his job. And segueing nicely into the Oscar Piastri situation, I don't know if Josh has got news on that because he just perked up as well. But I've just been informed that from an inside source as well, who has said that Oscar Piastri is no longer wanted at Alpine. So those contract negotiations have really boiled down. So I did hear the strange rumour, I don't know if you two did, but what could happen is if the contractual board find that Piastri is the ownership of Alpine, Alpine could flog him to AlphaTauri in exchange for Gasly to come in to Alpine, and that leaves McLaren with absolutely no driver. So the question is, if that happens, who are McLaren? Who's their backup driver? Because they've just said goodbye to Daniel Ricciardo because they clearly weren't happy with him. So who's going to be a driver alongside Lando Norris? Who's brave enough to step into that scene if Alpine do get the deal with Piastri and then flog him to Gasly?
McLaren really haven't thought about this, have they? But I have got breaking news.
Go for it.
Of a photo that came from the Ferrari pit wall yesterday. Here it is.
I love that meme. To be fair, the frog guy even looks like Mattia Binotto a little bit as well. He was very hard not to turn. Do anyone remember the party a couple of years ago where he was wearing those hats? Say a couple of years ago. Neither of you were born. It was back in the Schumacher days as well, when he had that, when there was sick all the way down. He was wearing a Toyota top and there was sick all the way down him as well. I think Schumacher, Michael had one then. I think it was about 2005 then, if it was Toyota top, because Ralph was at Toyota. I think that year anyway, or maybe 2006. Either way, I remember. But go on, Alpine, go on then. This whole mess with Oscar Piastri as well, it's an embarrassment as well, and it's all caused by McLaren and Zach Brown signing every single driver under the sun. He's not only got drivers in F1, he's got drivers in IndyCar as well that are vying for the seat. Colton Herta, Alex Palou, Pato O'Ward, Felix Rosenquist as well. It's just an absolute mess. And I mean, do the FAA have to step in here and tell McLaren stop signing drivers? You're breaking several thousand rules. I mean, what's the end game here for everyone? Who's going to be where? Who's going to be happy? Because someone's going to be miserable.
Of course, from an Andretti perspective, Colton Herta is the golden boy. He's, at least in America, not in Europe, but to the Americans, he's being compared to Max Verstappen over in IndyCar. He's a little bit too inconsistent for me to be deserving of an F1 seat at this stage. And as my understanding as well of the rules, he doesn't have enough super license points at the moment. However, good news for the Americans is that there is a loophole in the super license points, in that the FIA, last time I checked anyway, I don't know whether it's been patched up in recent years, it says as long as you are deemed by the FIA to have exceptional single-seater ability, then they can award you a super license without the necessary points. So maybe Colton Herta is sort of eyeing that up in the McLaren seat, especially now that Stefano Domenicali has poo-pooed the sort of Andretti idea from 2026. Perhaps Colton Herta is starting to think, oh, maybe I can go and join McLaren.
Yeah, someone needs to gag Stefano Domenicali quite quickly for the comments he was making over the weekends. First of all, saying that legacy circuits don't really need to belong on the F1 calendar unless they update to the modern glitziness of what Formula One he thinks to be as well. Saying as well about how 26 Grand Prix on the calendar is perfectly fine. And then also saying that the women won't be in Formula One for another 5 years, if ever, as well. I mean, the comments, it was just ridiculous coming from him as well. Somebody definitely needs to gag him, in my opinion.
One practice. One
practice. That was the other one. Yeah, thanks for reminding me. Yeah, the reducing of one practice and then sprint races every single weekend as well. I mean,
I would personally have serious considerations of getting rid of Dominicali
Yeah.
at the earliest opportunity. In fairness, I don't know what context he made the women comments in, but I think at the moment, 5 years, it's a reflection poorly on the sport. But I don't think at the moment there's particularly anyone coming through the ranks that would be worthy of an F1 seat in the next 5 years. But I think that's not. It's not a comment that you make sort of derogatory. I think it's just the unfortunate fact of the matter at the moment. However, we would definitely love to see it happen within the next 10 years. And I think with W Series and things, remember, we're not going to see the effects of extra opportunities like W Series and the Girls on Track program and things. They've only been up for about 5 years or so. So we're not going to be seeing the effects of those until much later on down the line in the next 10 years. So I can see why those particular comments are fair. But I'm really not a Dominicali fan. I think what he's doing for the sport is more pandering to Liberty Media's profits and the sort of entertainment side of F1 rather than actually trying to keep the integrity of the sport behind. I think this sort of Liberty Media prioritising profits was a big reason why Abu Dhabi ended how it did, because there was that extra pressure on Michael Massey to give them a product in many ways.
Yes, Stefano Tate, I think his name is actually at the moment, for the comments he was making throughout the weekend. We'll leave the Oscar Piastri situation until we receive any breaking news, because apparently the things I've just heard in my ears, as well as the fact that they haven't yet left the courtroom, so we'll keep an eye out. Anything we'll bring you throughout the week as well. Be sure to tune into the Grid Network as well for all our midweek shows as well, telling us of all the information that we receive. And of course, we'll be with you in Zandvoort on the preview show on Friday morning before practice as well. Further down then on the ball, we'll get through this quite quickly because we've only got 20 more minutes, as F1 just tweet about Vegas again, as the tickets have gone on sale, so they're trying to flog a dead horse already out there. That's what they really are, going through a desert with a horse in no name, aren't they, as they come through. So it was Ocon 7th, so Vettel 8th, Gasly 9th, and Alexander Albon doing an amazing job. Started 6th, yes, dropped to 10th, but in a Williams getting points as well. He put a tweet out as well saying as well it was a great day with the wide version of his Williams blocking the track. I thought that was quite funny as well. Stroll was 11th, Lando dropped down into 12th position in the end. Zhou was 13th, Sonoda 14th, and Ricciardo, I think, having the worst day of anyone, dropping down to 15th, the last of the runners out there on the circuit as well. Magnussen, Schumacher and Latifi were all a lap down on the field as well. The only two retirements, Bottas got taken out by Latifi, and Lewis Hamilton took Still I Rise to a whole new meaning and took a leap of faith over the front wing of Fernando Alonso as well, and retired with a cracked engine as well and damaged floor. So the engine, the oil line sort of burst and effectively set fire to the car on the inside. So how much that power unit is recoverable, I don't know. But I know we've got to get on quickly. So is there anything else you want to both talk about from the names I read out? Anything else you spotted in the race yesterday from Belgium?
All I think is that Lewis Hamilton was maybe trying to be a shuttle and be like SLS. And let's go back to Charles Leclerc. 1 kilometre an hour.
Yeah.
1.
It's ridiculous. I mean, yeah, they could have let that one slide a little bit.
And then, of course, Lewis Hamilton. We touched on this in the show yesterday.
Oh, there we go. We're back. Hello. Sorry, the screen went blue there.
But he refused to go to the medical centre.
Ah, yes, he did, didn't he?
He has been reprimanded, I believe, for that.
It was just a warning for the driver and a warning to every single driver in the paddock, and it was a very serious statement that all of the drivers and teams got, saying that if you do not go to the medical centre after a serious crash or going airborne like that, there will be serious consequences.
So,
as there absolutely should be as well. Can I just quickly interject? Because there's a lot of times when you can say, for instance, you've had something like a bad electric shock, or you've gone in the air like that, and there can be damage to your head. You can have a head injury that doesn't actually present itself for quite a while after the track. So those they're in there to protect the drivers, and not reporting to the medical centre is a very serious thing on the side of Hamilton.
Funny, isn't it, Lewis Hamilton, for the second time this year as well, complaining about the regulation changes as well as the fact the car's not competitive, and then he went on about for months, didn't he, about how the proposing as well, it's so bad, everybody's suffering, we're all going to have terrible injuries and bad backs when we're older as well, it's going to cause us long-term damage. He bugged the FIA, do something, you've got to fix this. Okay, Lewis, we'll do something. We'll introduce mandatory checks. We'll lower the ride height. And if there is a big accident, we'll take you to the medical centre to take a look. Lewis has a big accident. Oh, no, I'm not doing that. It's typical Lewis. He is a whiny... I can't say that on YouTube because it began with a B. But he's whiny. He's a little kid half the time when it comes to this. Every rule applies to everybody else bar him. And it's one thing that always grates me about Lewis is the fact is that when he bugs for rules to be put in place for the safety of others, and then when they need to be affected against him, like going to the medical centre, checking he's okay, he doesn't do it. I mean, it's almost like he's actively trying to annoy the FIA, and so he was doing it even before last year in Abu Dhabi. He's always out to annoy the FIA, and that's not what a world champion does. It's not what a good role model does, is annoy the people in charge. I mean, it's so annoying me.
Now,
Yeah.
I'll
Go
let
on,
Josh.
Tom.
Sorry, no, I've already said go ahead. I'll go after you.
Yeah, and it really, really is stupid, especially with the jewellery situation.
Yeah, that too, actually. Yeah, earlier on this year.
And I think someone just needs to sit down with Lewis and say, you are a 7-time world champion. You are the role model for this sport. Stop whining and just get on with it. All of these rules that apply to everyone else, because you're a 7-time world champion and the role model, doesn't mean that they don't apply for you. Let's take it. You've got students in a school. You've got head boy, head girl, prefects, senior prefects. All of the rules that apply to all of the lower students apply to the head boy, head girl, and all of the higher ones. So they also apply to Lewis Hamilton as well.
I contend that Lewis Hamilton isn't in his head, and I know he does a lot of his activism and things, but when he's a competitor, he isn't a role model. He's a master of these mind games in that, and that's all they are. They're mind games. He does these things for a reason. He's a very calculated man, I think, Lewis Hamilton. It's if you've watched the documentary with Michael Jordan, how he'd make things up about his competitors to try and give himself a little bit of drive. Lewis Hamilton sort of creates this, I believe anyway, in his head, this sort of a target to sort of get angry at, and that helps him rev himself up ahead of these races. Very genius, actually.
Yeah.
And I think this is the kind of thing he does. He wants to have something to constantly whine about, because if he's just having a bad season, he loses the motivation. He's getting quite old now. What is he, 38, Lewis Hamilton?
Double checking. 85, 30, 85 was born? I thought he was born in 87. Oh, well, yeah, he's 38, 37, 38, yeah. I thought he was born in 1987.
Very quickly at that age, when all the
Yeah, 37.
training sort of catches up with your body and things like that, at that age, you start to lose a little bit of motivation. So I think with Lewis Hamilton, he needs something that just sort of either makes him angry or gives him something to fight about, and that helps him spur on that little bit of fight that he's got in order to go and deliver his best results on the track. And I think that's why Max Verstappen turned so nasty, because if you see, he tried these mind games with the likes of Nico Rosberg, and Nico Rosberg had to drive himself to a mental breakdown, essentially, in order to beat Lewis Hamilton in 2016. It doesn't work on Max Verstappen, because he's just so cool-headed, and that is why 2021 turned so nasty. So whilst I think Lewis Hamilton can sometimes be a little bit whiny, and I think a lot of it is a part of an act almost to try and help himself get into the right mental state to deliver results onto the track. And this is what these top sportsmen do. That's how they do it, a lot of them.
I think we need Tom on all the time. He's bringing common sense into the chat. I like this as well, yeah. And Josh, you brought up great things about Lewis Hamilton, the duel earlier on this year as well. I'm completely agreeing with Tom's point as well. He's put it brilliantly. Is the fact is that he always seems to have something. What he had the what was it, the proposing at the start of the year, then he had the jewellery in Australia until Monaco, then he didn't have anything for a while, then it was back to the proposing, wasn't it? He's shifting backwards and forwards between things to target himself to, and not get wound up about the car and not destroy the team's relationship. I think you pretty much bang on that as well, because he is having a bad season. It's the first year he hasn't won anything. It's his longest losing streak in history in terms of he hasn't won a race. He hasn't won a race since Saudi Arabia 2021. That's nearly a year ago now, coming up in December as well. So it's terrible. How long? 9 months.
Yeah, it really, really is. And Lewis Hamilton's won at least one race every single year that he's been in Formula One. So that would be a first in the 2022 season, and quite shocking, I think, if we leave Abu Dhabi and no win for Lewis Hamilton. And also, just quickly, Bennett's British Superbikes have apologised to their one fan which had his beer stolen from Danny Buchan.
It's all go, isn't it? The party in the park coming through. Okay, we'll leave Formula One then, because there's no other information. I've just double checked as well. We'll leave Formula One and give you two a little bit of a rest, and I'll very quickly run us through the F2 to begin with, and starting with their sprint race as well, as Liam Lawson, who took his first sprint race win of the year as well. Jack Doohan finished in second position, with Ralph Boschung in third. Championship leader Felipe Drugovich was fourth in the sprint race. Richard Verschoor was fifth. Theo Pourchaire climbed back up into sixth position. David Beckman was dropped down to eighth, with Marcus Armstrong promoted up to seventh as well, just in between the race with penalties. Awasa was ninth, and Dennis Hauger in 10th, rounding out the sprint race points. Further down, Ronnie Zani again making contact with everybody on the opening lap. He was dropped to 11th after contact. Sato was 12th, Fittipaldi 13th, Vips 14th, Vesti in 15th position, Callum Williams 16th, and Clement Novalak dropped down to 17th. Cordial was 18th, Calderon 19th, and Lorenzo Zendelli had a penalty as well applied to him. He was down in 20th. Sargent and Jaruvalo were the only two retirements. Sargent put it into the wall as well on lap 9, bringing out the safety car and making it a two-horse race. First 9 laps were very boring. The second half of the race, though, was absolutely entertainment as well, including Lawson battling with Doohan for most of the race as well. In the feature race that came out as well on Sunday, it was much, again, a tale of two halves as well, because it was an interesting race in terms of strategy, and it all went down to Jack Doohan as well. He had an amazing pit stop and finished ahead of Felipe Drugovich, but Emil Cordial, who was a lap down as well, blocked Jack Doohan for quite a lot of the race after the pit stop as well. Doohan had got a 3-second lead over Drugovich. That got brought down to 0.7, but as soon as it got past, Doohan activated the tyres and once again got up into the lead and took the race win. His first ever feature race win as well, Jack Doohan. Drugovich was second. Lawson finished in third place as well, so podium in both races, victory in one, third in the other. Verschoor was in fourth, Sargent fifth, with Beckman in sixth, Awasa seventh, Vips eighth, Novalak ninth, Fittipaldi 10th, Vesti 11th, Hauger 12th, Armstrong 13th, Boschung 14th, Sato 15th, Williams in 16th, Cordial 17th, Calderon 18th, Nazani is 19th, 20th Duruvala, and 21st Lorenzo Zendelli, and Theo Pourchaire, the only retiring in the pit lane due to a problem as well, on contact on the opening lap after an only safety car. But Theo Pourchaire, the closest rival to Drugovich, out of the race as well. That puts Drugovich so far ahead now in the championship. It really gets exciting when we get to Formula 3, because in the sprint race as well, we had a massive crash that involved the likes of Zane Maloney alongside Oliver Goleth as well. The car flipping upside down for Zane Maloney, getting contact again for Goleth. That brought out the red flag and a 40-minute delay while the tyre barriers were repaired. But in the end as well, very close racing, constant drama. Oliver Behrman took his first ever Formula 3 win, with Roman Stanek second. Alexander Smolia had his best result in third, with Johnny Edgar fourth. Leclerc fifth in the championship as well. That closed up the gap as well, with William Alatello sixth, then David Vidales, Brad Benedivers, Isaac Hadja and Carl Collette rounding out the top 10. Then it's Crawford, Saucy, Maney, Oshima, Colapinto, Truly, Asman. Juan Correa started second, got forced off the track, dropped down to 17th. Malvesti 18th, Pitsy 19th, and O'Sullivan 20th with a post-race penalty. Then it was Victor Martins, who was second in the title, dropping down to 21st. Toth was 22nd, Villa Gomez 23rd and 24th, Ryder Cohen. Out of the race, as I said, Jose Maria Marti, Oliver Goleth, Zane Maloney, Christian Mansell and Caden Frederick, those last two retiring on the opening lap of the race. The feature race on Sunday, though, what a turn of events. Zane Maloney, who was upside down in the sprint race, was right side up and on the top step of the podium in the feature race, taking his first ever race win in Formula 3 as well. Roman Stanek was second. The race winner of the sprint, Oliver Behrman, was third as well, echoing what Liam Lawson did in Formula 2. Then we get Oliver Goleth bouncing back to fourth as well. Johnny Edgar fifth, Kyle Collette sixth, William Alatello seventh, David Vidales eighth, ninth for Alexander Smolia, 10th for Risa Tsushima. Arthur Leclerc was just outside the points in 11th as well, with Colapinto 12th, O'Sullivan 13th, then Hadjar, Correa, Frederick Crawford, Brad Benedivez, Villa Gomez, Asman, Pizzi, Jose Maria Marti, then it's Mansell, Truly, Toth and Malvesti. Out of the race was Saucy as well, Ida Cohen, Victor Martins and Kush Maney. And all that meant as well with the double podium for Oliver Behrman meant he went from being 20 points back to second in the championship, 1 point behind the championship leader as well of Isaac Hadjar. So we've got a fantastic run going into the last 2 weekends of Formula 3, with the championship now being decided between 4 people with a gap of 5 points. It really is looking to be a fantastic weekend. That's enough of the Formula 2, Formula 3 chat, and we'll leave you now with closing thoughts from Formula 1, and I'll start with you, Tom. What was your closing memory of the Belgium Grand Prix?
Was very excited at Max Verstappen. Essentially, I think there's been so much hype around him for years, and we've seen glimmers of this, of course, that one World Championship, I think, this year, really in a league of his own. And if this continues, and it's a big if yet, if they do have got these regulations right, and they can continue this for a couple of years, then I think Max Verstappen could quickly find himself with 4 or 5 World Championships.
And of course, Max Verstappen was apparently not running the lighter new carbon car setup that they were rumoured to be bringing. So the car is going to be lighter and faster in Singapore as well. So that's going to be very interesting for the last half of the season as well. So Red Bull going from strength to strength, Ferrari going from weaker to weaker. Josh, what was your closing memory from the Spa-Francorchamps?
First 2 laps, absolutely amazing. Lap 3 onwards, bit of a boring until Ferrari decided to mess up once again, which we were all expecting. Yeah. What will Ferrari do at Monza? I think that will just finish it off at Monza. But next week, or on Friday, we are at Zandvoort, and what will Max Verstappen do? Max Verstappen could literally be unwell and not partake in 4 Grand Prix, and Charles and Sergio Perez get 4 wins, and there would only be like a 2-point gap.
Is it bad? I kind of want to see that just to excite the championship a little bit. 98 points, it's a ridiculous amount, isn't it?
It really is.
Well, that's it then. Formula 1's going all the way over. Tom, were you going to say something? I thought you advanced. I'll let you finish.
No. I was just nodding in agreement.
I don't want to interrupt anyone. I just want to say hello quickly to Rob, who's in the chat as well, watching on. Hello, Rob. Right, give you the coverage details then. This weekend as well, we're all over the place, quite literally. We've got every session of IndyCar as well, live, the practice, the qualifying and the race, as well as we're doubling up with the Grid Network. At their home race, the Portland Grand Prix as well, will be doubling up and having their team on the call as well. MotoGP returns as well. You can join us on Sunday for that as well. Live coverage from the San Marino Grand Prix. But because that race starts at 1 o'clock, we want to quick off as well, and that means as well the build-up show to Formula 1's Dutch Grand Prix in the Netherlands as well at Zandvoort will start at 1:50, a 10-minute build-up before we get going for the race itself as well. But we are currently trying to change that. But we'll have practice, qualifying and the race live from Zandvoort across, of course, Formula 1 and then, of course, Formula 2 and Formula 3 with Synthol Trackside on the Saturday as well, and not sure if we'll be back in time for Sunday over there as well. I know, Tom, you're already stepping into the comms box for that one as well, which is going to be a lot of fun having you there as well, and myself and Josh will be with you for the F1 races as well. My thanks to you both for joining me on this Monday afternoon, and hopefully everyone's enjoyed a bit of an extended review show because so much to talk about after the summer break. Be sure to tune in to the Grid Network's midweek review as well. We've got the Encore show tonight as well, talking all things NASCAR, Xfinity trucks, and yes, Formula 2 and Formula 3 as well. Myself and Ben will be there. Kobe and Adam will be with you on Wednesday as well for the midweek report before we kick off for IndyCar coverage over the weekend. My thanks to Tom Dillon, my thanks to Josh Blaze. We'll see you all on Friday for first practice. Boy, this week comes around fast. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.